Okay, well, good evening, everyone. It's a little bit after 7:30, so we're going to go ahead and start with our opening prayer. And excuse me, as people come in, they can go ahead and join. And our format tonight is going to be our opening prayer, and then I'm going to give some opening remarks. Foti, our parish council president, will address everyone, and then Jim Kunsel, our parish council treasurer, will, and then we will open the floor up for questions. So I ask that you do have if you have questions during the meeting, go ahead and type them into the chat or hold on to them until we get to the end. It'll be easier for us if we can present our reports first, and then we'll respond to questions later. So we ask that I ask you keep yourselves muted at least during the presentations, and then there'll be plenty of time for us to address everyone's questions or concerns specifically as they ask them at the end after our reports, and we'll be able to go back if we need to, and Jim and Foti will be able to answer questions as well at the end. So as we go through, please just hold your questions, and then we will discuss them all together at the end. So if we'll bow our heads in prayer, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. O Lord and Savior, you became man and labored with your hands until the time of your ministry. Bless the parish of St. Athanasios and her faithful members and all of her ministries in your vineyard. Help us to bring all our tasks to completion. Lord, enlighten our minds and strengthen our bodies that we may accomplish your work according to your will. Guide us to bring about the works of goodness for your service and glory in the Aurora area and the wider community. To your glory, today and forever. Amen. Okay, so this is our agenda for the evening. As I said, we'll start off with just opening remarks from myself, the president, and treasurer, and then we will proceed on to open questions. So just right off the bat, I know that on a lot of people's minds was our announcement this past week that there was a positive COVID case within the parish. One of our parishioners did attend services on Sunday the 16th, but didn't begin showing symptoms until the 17th, and then later in the week tested positive. They're okay. We've then informed everybody. This is why we do that sign up genius, and we check everybody when they come in so that we can communicate with anyone in the parish who was in attendance. Everybody was noticed or given notice, and then out of a kind of an abundance of caution, I went and got tested, even though the contact between myself and the parishioners is limited. I have seen other situations where clergy have not gone to get tested. No one that I'm aware of has gotten sick, at least from our metropolis. But I felt in my duties to show concern for the parish. It was in the best interest of everybody that I go and get tested, not only of myself, but the community, so that you would know that I take not only my health, but your health and safety seriously. Unfortunately, we were informed on a Friday afternoon, so by the time I was able to go get a test, I wasn't able to get the results back until after Sunday, which is why we had Father Cosmas celebrate with us. I called the metropolis to inform them, and the chancellor let me know at that time that approximately 5 parishes had a potential COVID exposure during that weekend alone of the Dormition from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All instances were like ours, where the parishioner was attending without showing symptoms and was later developed symptoms. As a result, we have seen no cases of community transmission. That means that after informing our parishioners, we at St. Athanasios have not been informed of any additional parishioners who have become sick. We have not seen in the metropolis in any of those 5 parishes, according to our chancellor in our conversations, we haven't seen additional parishioners. So what we're seeing in terms of COVID's presence within the physical gathering of the community is the the result of people coming without symptoms, again, of their own goodwill, We have not had anybody come to the church in any of our churches who was showing symptoms and had to be turned away, which is why we do these checks and why we ask people before they come to, kind of confirm that they're in good health. So we haven't seen any symptomatic attendance. And as a result of social distancing, the masks and the policies and the procedures, which I know sometimes can be burdensome and cumbersome, but we also haven't seen any community transmission within the Greek Orthodox metropolis of Chicago. So the precautions that we're taking are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing and keeping our parishioners safe, which I think is a really important thing to focus on. Again, thank God that this is not expanded beyond. Thank God that we are still able to gather and worship. Thank God that our metropolis had the foresight and the strength to give us these precautions, which have been beneficial for all of us in keeping us safe. But I did want to just deal with that up front because I know that many people had concerns about it. I know that the CDC had new guidelines this week about who needs to be tested and who doesn't. We will go back and review with our COVID safety team now that we've had this one experience, what steps we might want to take in the future. But we followed every policy that was presented by the metropolis of Chicago as they presented it. And so we will review again just to make sure that we're in compliance with the state and local health regulations. But we were at the time that we made the decisions and just want to make sure now going forward that we will be if something happens and there's another exposure in the future. Again, thank God we are taking the precautions that we have and we have not seen any community transmission. It is almost unavoidable that those who are not symptomatic can be present in areas and gatherings. So there's no way to prevent that. The only way to prevent coming in contact with somebody who may be asymptomatic is to just come into contact with no one. So it is a reality of the life in the church that there is a risk, but thank God, looking at this and the other anecdotes of the metropolis of Chicago, that risk has not spread. So I did want to address that off the bat. Given that, I want to just kind of review a little bit before going forward. The first is our liturgical life in the church. As you know, we've resumed kind of parishioner attendance back at the Feast of Pentecost. I want to start off by thanking our ushers, our parish council members, and our COVID safety team for their hard work. It is a lot to manage everybody who comes to the church, checking them in, seating them, the procedures to come up for Holy Communion and whatnot. And I particularly want to thank Foti, who manages all of that, is one of our most active ushers, and all the rest of our parish council members who have helped with that, and those who've helped with the cleaning. As you know, we clean after every service so that the church is sanitized and is prepared for the next service afterward. Recently, we've re-begun our sacraments, so baptisms and weddings have resumed. We were celebrating funerals as they came up, even during the most restrictive times of COVID, but now we're at a point where we're once again celebrating baptisms and weddings. So we're seeing some return to a more full and robust sacramental life. Did want to note that per the regulations of the metropolis, all of our altar boys are limited to those who are 16 and over. I believe the thinking behind this is they're old enough and mature enough to maintain social distance, to maintain their masks while they're serving in the altar. And it's just easier to manage a smaller number in a more confined space. So there is that limit itself. Going forward, we will continue to have the regular services of the church. There is no reason for those to change, and we will again continue with the rest of the sacraments going forward. So again, just a brief remark on our liturgical life. There are a few things I wanted to cover just administratively. The first is the reconfiguring of the office. We just moved some furniture around, but part of this was necessitated by kind of going through our filing system, and there some of this stuff might seem administrative and make more sense for Fuati to speak about, but to me, the way that we maintain our office is also a very important pastoral matter, because all of your information is kept there. Our ability to minister to you is impacted largely upon how we, yes, even how we file paperwork and things like that. And maintaining an orderly system is really important for us to do what we need to do. And part of that is then enables us to update our database. Our database, we have most of your information, but we do not have complete information on, I would be willing to say, we do not have a complete profile in any one family within our parish in terms of home phone numbers, cell phone numbers, email addresses, physical addresses, full contact information, ages, where you work, or other things, other ministries that you're participating in or interested in. It makes it very difficult, and I'll bring this up, how this administrative matter impacts us pastorally. When COVID first started, I set out to call every family in the parish. I've gone through the list, and just to make contact with everybody to check in and see how everybody was doing. Oftentimes, when I would pull up a family in our database, I would have one phone number that was listed, and it wasn't clear whether it was the husband's phone number or the wife's phone number or the home phone number or even a child's phone number. So I would call, let's just use the Pappas family, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get Nick, I'm not sure if I'm going to get Eleni, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get, their son Michael, because he has a cell phone, but nothing's listed. So sometimes I called everybody, but I didn't know who was going to pick up the phone. Also, it makes it difficult for families that have children. I might have your children's names, but being a new priest to the parish, I don't know everything about your family. I don't know what your children's age is, right? If I'm just looking in the database. If I'm trying to figure out what 16-year-old young men do I have in the parish that I can ask to come serve in the altar, I don't know that. So it makes it really hard for me to be proactive about reaching out and supporting families and inviting them to participate in the life of the church if I don't know who you are and the best way to get in touch with you. So what we're going to ask in terms of administration in the office is, first and foremost, if you're looking for something to do and a way to give back to the church, we would love some additional volunteers to help out in the office, to help with, yes, maybe some of that filing, but also with our database and making sure that we have all those contact informations, and just being extra hands to help out around the office would be great at this time. But in addition to that, for those families with children, we have sent out in our weekly emails, and we'll be sending out specific emails as well, that youth registration form. So it's the Sunday school registration form, but we're also going to use it for our youth ministries. That will have a lot of fields and a lot of contact information for us to gather. The thought behind this, again, was we're going to send you one form that you as a family can fill out, and you can register for Sunday school. You can, and then we'll know the age of your kids, the school grade of your children, and we'll be able to put them as a Goya age person in our database, or a junior Goya age person, or a Joy age person, or a college age person in our database. And then when we're planning events, we will have a good solid list of people to draw from to minister to. For stewardship, what we would ask is, if you're when it comes time to make your pledge for 2021, please use our online portals as much as possible. We've added an online stewardship pledge form, so you can fill out your pledge form just like you would on paper. You can now do that online, and you can make your stewardship payments online, and you can even set up recurring payments through Vanco, which is our parish app. We've had a lot of information about this in our emails as well. But again, one of the benefits of using this online portal is that it helps us gather that contact information so that we can better minister to you. The more information we have, the easier it is for me to be present and reach out and invite you to participate in the life of the church and to be there to support you and to know who I'm calling when I'm trying to call somebody. So that's really, in terms of the administration, our big asks. If you can help out in the office, we'd love to have your help. If you have children, please fill out that youth registration form that will register them for Sunday school, but also the rest of our ministries, and it will give us your contact information. And as we prepare for the 2021 year, please consider making your stewardship pledge online so that we can capture all that information there and automatically update our database without you having to fill it out on paper and then us having to manually upload it into our database. So those are those things there. Since I mentioned 2021, we're now at the beginning almost of September and the kind of the launch of our 2020-2021 ministry year. Our focus for this year, in light of the fact that so much of the world is unknown, so much of our activities are unknown just based on COVID, but our focus for the year is on connection more so than content. Forty is going to discuss something later to talk specifically about in-reach and engagement, but I want you to know that our parish focus in all of our ministries for this year is going to be building connection, whether that's in person or whether that's digital. That is what we want to focus on, right? The divine liturgy of the church brings us into contact with God and brings us into contact with one another. And so the ministry of the church also needs to embody that as much as possible. And so that is really going to be our focus, bringing each other into contact with God and bringing each other into contact with each other, which is sorely needed at this time. I participated in a consultation with the Metropolis Youth and Young Adult Office, and there was also a youth summit that many of our youth leaders participated in. On that youth summit, His Eminence Metropolitan Nathaniel joined us and said specifically to all those, there were some 80 people in attendance at that summit, that we need to do as much in-person ministry as possible. Again, in this other consultation with the youth office, we had the same discussion, and so the official kind of policy coming out of the metropolis is each parish should strive to do as much, again, according to the safety and health guidelines of the metropolis and the state and local agencies, but as much in-person ministry as we possibly can with those guidelines for the purpose of building connection. So some of those specific COVID guidelines for in-person activities are, for the time being, all activities will take place outdoors. The risk of transmission is drastically reduced in an open air space than it is in a closed building. So that will have to be revisited as the weather turns. I mean, this is Chicago first, so September might be fine, October we might be okay, but after that we'll have to revisit that, and the metropolis will give us some guidelines on that. As a result of this, we're going to try and have as many of our ministries on, quote unquote, on campus as possible, be they youth ministries or other ministries. It's too difficult to try and plan something to go out to a facility, and not many facilities, not many places are even having events right now. So it can be very difficult to even try and do that. So all of our youth activities, all of our Philoptikos activities, any other parish ministry we will host here. And then in terms of grouping, the metropolis's guidance is that we meet in quote unquote pods of 10, and that we have a maximum of 3 pods per event, and that those quote unquote pods don't interact with each other, right? So we've had some discussions with the Philoptikos about having some type of kickoff event, and that kickoff event we were discussing, there would be one pod of 10, another pod of 10, another pod of 10, all in different areas outside of the church. and that those particular groups wouldn't come together and mix, but would obviously be here for the same event. For youth events, per the youth protection guidelines, it will be 2 adults and 8 youths that make up that pot of 10. So you're really talking about 6 adults, maxing out at 6 adults, 6 youth workers, and 24 young youths for any particular event. But that is what in-person activities will look like. I have a call with Ted Dulles tomorrow to discuss some guidelines. He is our chair for our COVID safety team. So we're going to kind of draft some general guidelines for each ministry so that they know what they need to do before each event. The same cleaning protocols that we use for the church will be employed after every event, non-liturgical as well. So there are particular guidelines that we have to maintain, but by maintaining them, we are dedicated to doing as much ministry in person as possible. Now, there will be some opportunities that require us to have strictly digital ministries, and the first of that is Sunday school. Trying to gather our students, the pods of 10 situation doesn't work. If we have services on Sunday, you know that we're limited to 80 people, and then trying to have a good enough proportion of that 80 being Sunday school age children, the logistics of it are just not possible. So we made the decision to go to e-learning for Sunday school. September 20th will be our first day of Sunday school. We're, again, in the process of planning kind of again, according to the protocols and the guidelines, a possible meet and greet for our teachers and their students. That's being planned, and we will announce that specifically when we're ready to kind of have all of those details finalized. Again, with Sunday school, just like with everything else, our emphasis is on connection, not necessarily recreating the classroom experience over Zoom, but we will use Zoom when necessary. Each class will have a Google Drive for their resources, so their teachers will be able to post either their readings, their drawings, their worksheets, whatever it is, so the families can have access to them before the session. Kids can work on their own if there isn't a Zoom session scheduled for that week. For our upper grades, 7th and 8th in high school, we are going to try and make Zoom our main way of meeting, but we'll do that on every other week basis because we know that our students are in Zoom or e-learning sessions for their regular school, and we don't want to overload them. So we are going to reduce the number of meetings that we have for Sunday school. But again, the purpose is on connection and teaching through connection. So there's some other activities that we'll do outside of specific Zoom, some projects for them to maybe work on across the entire class, maybe working on one project that goes from one house to the next, kind of like a progressive project where each student adds something to it. So our Sunday school teachers are really working hard to make sure that they're still providing education, but also that connection. And so we will be holding Sunday school that way. Our Bible study will start on September 10th. It'll be the second and fourth Thursday of every month via Zoom. We will be reading the Gospel of Mark. Depending on interest and depending on ability, we might kind of do a hybrid where those people who would like to meet in person can meet in person, and then we can still, using Zoom and using some microphones, still have people dial in via Zoom. But we will start off with Bible study just first, primarily via Zoom, and then potentially do a hybrid system. So those are our specifically digital ministries at the time. Everything else, like I said, will be focused on connection and building community and support during these times, using whatever means we have. So with that, I believe that comes to the end of what I wanted to address with the community, and I will turn it over to Foti right now.
Thank you very much, Father Panagiotis, and thank you for everyone that came this evening to our virtual town hall so that we can just update you on everything that's going on. The 4 helpful lists, Father Panagiotis contacted a young lady, Sandra Glisick from St. Peter and Paul in Glenview. She is the parish administrator there, and she also has her MBA at DePaul, and also is, she received a certificate from the Fletcher School at Tufts University for strategic leadership and transformative action. So Father Panagiotis wanted to get all of us together on the board to have this seminar and have Sandra come in. We did it on a Saturday. We were there for a few hours. And what the 4 helpful lists are, as you can see, is for our church, especially during COVID and even before COVID and after COVID, what is right, what is wrong, what can we change of what we're doing, what's missing, we need to add anything, and what is confused, what to clarify. So we, all of us, most of us met at the church and some of us via Zoom. Pretty much what it was, we had a sheet of paper for each one, and all of us went around and stated what we believe, what was right, wrong, missing, and confused. So towards the end of the day, what we ended up coming up with is a list of 6 core focus, 6 core focus teams. Now, the first team would be the in-reach and engagement. We find that it's very important, especially during this time of COVID, to reach out to our parishioners, make sure that they're informed what's going on in our church and so forth. Our spiritual growth. It's important, again, to have, our online streaming going at a good rate with the video, the sound, and so forth for our parishioners and also non-parishioners to view our services online. Our ministries, our strategic planning, our finances, and leadership and development and personnel. So we were to meet this past Saturday, this past Saturday. However, with the COVID case, the positive COVID case that we had, we ended up rescheduling it. And what we will do is plan for all of us to meet in at church or outside of church for these teams. Now, each team has a board member, a board member, so there's 3 people per team. However, we did ask for, reached out to other parishioners, 4 other parishioners that are in our parish, if they're able to assist us with this. So once we have our meeting and in our groups with one another, we'll be able to provide you with more information on what those teams will be doing for the rest of this year and also into 2021. I know many of you have reached out and asked about what we're going to be able to do with a festival. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do an indoor festival due to the amount of people that come to our festival. The metropolis has provided us guidelines for us to have a drive-through or a carry-out for a festival. So we've gone through the guidelines. I have been in contact with the city of Aurora pretty much every day this week, talking to their special events, to our alderman's office, to the health department. There is just one sheet from the special events department in the city of Aurora, is about 3 pages long, that we have to fill out, pretty much stating what we're going to be doing to make sure that we have social distancing, how many people will be present at our festival, for the people that are coming to our drive-through, how are we going to collect their information, their name, phone number, and email, just in case if there is an outbreak or a positive case, that we have to contact everyone that came during that time, and how are we going to sanitize. It will be a very limited menu if we do go forward with this, but I'm still working with the city of Aurora trying to get all that information together. So once we have more information, and if we decide to move forward with having a festival, a drive-through festival, we will provide that information to all of you in the champion, and also via email. that is it. I believe that was my last slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Foti.
My
I'm going to
pleasure.
turn it over now to Jim. Let me actually, hang on. Let me find Jim first. There you are.
I think I
You muted,
unmuted
Jim?
myself, so let's see if you
Okay,
can hear me.
great. You good? I
Yeah,
got
can you
Jim.
hear me?
Okay.
Okay,
Yep, go right
super.
ahead.
So good evening, everyone. And as Father Foti said, thanks for joining us. So I'm going to walk through just a financial update on where we are through the month of July. And I guess just to ground everybody in our discussion, I put up here on this first slide the budget that was approved last fall at the parish assembly for 2020. And just to remind everybody how we do these budgets, we always budget our income to our expenses, and we budget to a break-even number. So that means that basically the revenues or the income that we're looking to take in every year are equally matched with what we're planning on spending during the same fiscal year. So so for the budget for 2020 for this year was just over $605,000, both on income and expenses. And the thing I wanted to point out on the income side was really just the top two numbers. Stewardship pledges and special events really make up the majority of the income for the church. So you can see everyone's pledged stewardship is about 56% of our income, and then special events counts for 28% of the income we're expecting to take in during the year. And we can move on to the next slide. So through July, here's kind of how those numbers look. And so these are income budgeted and expenses budgeted through July, and then what the actuals were. So through the month of July, we had almost $375,000 budgeted for income. That number was at just under $275,000, so we're at about 73% of budget. And I'm going to go through those numbers in detail on the next page. From an expense standpoint, our budget was $368,000 through the month of July, and our actual spend was just over $279,000. So there again, we're below budget, which is good. We're at about 76% of budget on the expense side. So when COVID hit and we ended up having to close the church, we basically went through and stopped all discretionary spending. So that included everything, even like we stopped garbage pickup at the church. And when I say we, I really mean Foti, because he does a lot of the calling and taking care of things. But we stopped garbage pickup. We stopped the cleaning service. Pretty much anything that we could, we stopped spending money on. At the same time, things like, the air conditioning, as some of you know, we've had issues in the past with mold in the classroom. So those are things, there's certain expenses that are just fixed that we need to keep going. But for the most part, everything that was discretionary that we were able to stop spending, we stopped spending. And then as we've opened up the church, we've gotten back to, we had to restart our cleaning service, restart garbage pickup, et cetera. But the bottom line there is that what we had budgeted through July was to be almost $22,000 negative, which there's some timing differences on how we collect revenues versus expenses. So to be at a negative number in July is not, that's how we budgeted the numbers. And typically in July, people kind of disappear on vacations and things. But our actual numbers were just, were better than that, actually. We were only $8,000 negative. So actually ahead of budget when it comes to, bottom line where we thought we would be at through the month of July. And we can move on to the next slide. So this slide here shows some of the breakdown that I mentioned on the other page about how revenues break down. And so you can see stewardship here, we're at about 94% of plan, what we had planned to collect through the month of July. So we had planned 337,000 roughly. We collected just under 300,000. The areas that are highlighted here in red are really the things that are probably the most impacted. So special events, this would include things like the spring festival, the golf outing, candles. Obviously, if you're in church, you're buying candles and trays. Well, if people aren't necessarily in church, anybody who's been to church knows, we're no longer passing trays for safety purposes, so we're not collecting those monies. And then candles, obviously, we're limited to 80 people a week. So compared to our typical church, those numbers are down too. So you can see, especially special events, both the golf outing and the Spring Food Fest are big revenue items, income items for us. So our budget there, we're at 10%, so significantly off there. The good news is the next two items that are highlighted there in green, seasonal donations. So these are monies we collect around the Easter holiday. And then general donations, I'd just like to really take a moment and thank everyone, because this has been really, really nice to see. In terms of folks, I know that a lot of people have been impacted during this COVID period with losing jobs and having other impacts to them, the families and financially, but those who have been able to have been giving extra monies to help support the church. And so general donations, what we had budgeted through the month of July was just over $2,000, and you can see we've collected almost $18,000. So this has really helped to offset some of those things where we have shortfalls. So thank you very much to everybody who is able to support the church, supports the church in that way. I think that's it for this slide. We can move on to the next one. So what we did was we basically took the July actual numbers, and then we forecasted out where we thought the rest of the year would come out, and reforecasted the budget based on kind of what we're seeing right now in the numbers. And so what I'm going to go through here is kind of how those numbers look compared to what we had originally budgeted. So you can see it for income, again, as I mentioned before, we were at just over $605,000 in terms of an income budget. Based on the reforecast, and this would be those July actual numbers that I just shared on the previous screen, plus what we're expecting to collect through the end of the year, is just under $385,000. So pretty significantly off our income budget, only 63%. I'm going to go through the detail on the next page, just like we did before. On the expense side, again, we took the actual expenses through July, forecasted out the rest of the year. You can see there, we're coming in at 82% of budget. So down pretty significantly from what we had budgeted. But, as I mentioned, there's a lot of fixed costs associated with operating our facility that are things that we just, it's not discretionary. They're not things we can stop spending on. But this is what we've forecasted here through the end of the year. So again, the bottom line here is that our original budget called for us to break even for the year. This revised budget based on that has us significantly negative to the tune of about $110,000 if that's the way the rest of the year plays out. So on the next page, we'll go through some of the income items. So here you can see, stewardship, we had forecasted for the full year at about 87%. So through July, that number was higher as a percentage. That being said, a lot of that money is collected early on, and that was kind of pre-COVID. What we've been seeing since the return to, I guess if you want to call it normal, with people coming back to church, we're still collecting stewardship to a good extent, but it's not quite meeting budget. So we took a conservative approach there. Special events, this assumes that we're not able to do a fall food festival. So, Foti mentioned, he's working on it in terms of getting permission from the metropolis, as well as getting permission from the city of Aurora. If we don't do the fall food festival, this is kind of where we're going to come out. We have a pretty significant hole there. Candles and trays, those who are coming to church and those who are also lighting trays lighting candles virtually. This is kind of the candle number. Trays, as I mentioned, we're not passing trays. So this is kind of how things break down for the rest of the year. So you can see the items that are highlighted in red here. Really, the fact that we're not getting together in person, that impacts special events. It impacts candles, trays, bookstore revenues, things that we would normally be collecting. So that's kind of why that one's coming out. What I wanted to share on here is just a snapshot of where we are. So I think, the one page with the reforecast shows us using about $110,000 through the end of the year. The good news is, we have significant dollars in the bank, and that operating account is really the money that we use to run the church. But if we were to spend that $110,000, you can see that pretty close to depletes most of those funds. The mortgage, this is our mortgage balance as of right now. It's down pretty considerably since the beginning of the year, a little bit over 30,000. And at the bottom here, I just kind of showing you the difference as through July, we actually, in the operating account, we were cash flow positive, and same thing with our restricted account. That operating account, one thing I'd like to mention is many of you are probably familiar with the Paycheck Protection Program that the government rolled out to help small businesses. Non-for-profit organizations were also eligible to participate in that. So the church was able to obtain a loan for $28,000. So the fact that we're cash flow positive through July, some of that has to do with the fact that we were able to take that quote unquote loan. The way that works, it'll be fully forgiven. So it's really, if you want to think of it as a grant or free money, but we were able to secure some additional funds to help with some of the shortfall here, given the COVID situation. I guess we'll flip to the last page. So, just I guess to summarize, we don't really have line of sight to when we're going to return to, normal like things were. So in the meantime, we're operating in this new normal. And, as far as how we're managing through that on the parish council side, working to aggressively manage expenses and make sure that we're not spending any monies that aren't absolutely needed. At the same time, we do have expenses to keep the church open and running for everybody. And as far as, what we might ask for from the parishioners, again, understanding that many people have been negatively impacted by COVID financially, but to the extent that you can, and for those of you that have continued to fulfill your stewardship, and if you have extra, that you can help support with those other donations, would be greatly appreciated in terms of getting us through the rest of this year. So, I think with that, Father, I'll end there.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Foti, for both of your presentations. That takes us to the end of our prepared remarks. So what I'll do is turn it over now to our parishioners to ask any questions that they may have. You can type your questions into the chat, which I'll be monitoring, or if for those of us who are digitally able, if you want to raise your hand using the digital raise your hand, I will call on you there. I did ask for questions from the parish ahead of time via email. The only question I had was why is this conflicting with the last night of the RNC? It's simply just because this was the only night in August where I didn't have something else scheduled. So no slight to anybody who felt torn between hearing Foti, Jim, and myself versus tuning in to the RNC. This was not a political statement. It was a matter of my calendar. So with that, any questions from our parishioners? Betty, I see you had your hand raised. Hang on, you'll have to unmute yourself. Betty, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, so my question is, did we even have church Sunday? Because I didn't have anything, no video, nothing. And then I tried to relocate it and I still didn't see it.
Yes, we did have liturgy, but we did not get the live stream up. So
okay,
yeah, Father Cosmas Callis came and celebrated liturgy for us on this past Sunday, but the live stream is a little difficult to manage sometimes, and so we weren't able to get it up. But
that's okay. I was just curious.
Yep. Question from Virginia was for office assistance needed, is this just during the weekdays or is it possible to help on the weekends? Right now, we're just looking for weekdays. The office typically isn't open on the weekends. If we have sacraments, baptisms, or weddings, or things like that, other liturgies, I will be here. The parish council does do some brief work in the office, but we are not typically open on the weekends. The office itself is open. It's closed on Mondays. Right now, it's open on Tuesdays and Fridays, 9 to 5, and then Wednesday and Thursday, 9 to 2. So Tuesday and Friday, 9 to 5, Wednesday and Thursday, 9 to 2. Any additional questions? We've satisfied all of your queries. Good job, Footy and Jim. I'm very proud of you. Oh, here's Frank. Hang on. Yep. I've got one. Frank's iPad. Go ahead.
Father, thank you first of all for conducting the town hall. I think it's great in these times to have a little bit more communication with the parish, especially with our church attendance being limited. My question, I think I know the answer, but I don't know if everyone does, because I've had some questions from people. At the point we are now within the attendance levels that we're able to have in the church, between now and opening the doors fully, is there any step that we have from this point to then as far as expanding the number of parishioners who can attend?
I do not anticipate that we will move incrementally from where we're at right now, which is 80 total. We allow 72 slots for people to sign up. That's simply because myself, the chanters, the ushers, we all count towards that number 80. So we kind of figure we need 8 support people and then 72 slots for attendees during the services. That number is set by the recommendation of the state. So the state recommends that faith communities limit themselves to 25% capacity or 100 individuals, whichever is the lesser of the two. So our capacity is about 360 people. So 80 people is 25% of that. The state hasn't indicated that they would make any changes. And if you look at the plans that the governor originally drafted, we're actually exempt because most institutions, most facilities can't have more than 50 people. So we do have a broader attendance than many others. But the original plan was this, and then fully back to life theoretically as it was before, or life without restrictions. I'll just call it that, life without restrictions. Right. So there is no plan, at least in what the state has prepared thus far, for an incremental growth. It's just going to be, we're at this until we're full again, as far as it's been indicated now. There were a few questions in the chat. So the first, do I foresee when the metropolis will allow choir to resume? Again, I don't. There have been some reports about the proximity of people while they're singing, and singing versus speaking in terms of spreading your droplets, which is what carries the COVID virus. So the likelihood of choirs is probably not to return until after we are, again, without restriction, simply because to space out the individual members of the choir according to 6 feet of social distancing, and that space might actually need to be more when you're singing. We don't have the room, and I know as a whole, the metropolis is really cautious about the way that they approach this. So I do not foresee any return of the choir anytime soon. You can bet that when we're able to, again, like we said before, within the health restrictions that are provided to us, it is our hope to do as much as possible. So when we're able to have the choir, when we're able to have people gathering in that sense, we will not hesitate, but I can't foresee that right now. And then there was an additional question about, are we still not to sign up for services in advance, even though attendance numbers are consistently low? What on a normal week, this is not an issue. However, I will be honest, it was very difficult, and we had some difficulty getting people into church during the Kimisis, the Dormition weekend from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Normally it doesn't matter, but those obviously is a major feast. What we ask and what we're going to do with the sign up is we ask you to sign up for one service a month, and then the night before a service, then you can check and see if there are available slots. Please sign up the night before. That's fine, but out of respect to our other parishioners, please don't sign up for multiple services. I'm not discouraging you from attending. I'm just simply asking you to place as a priority your brother and sister's spiritual life as well as your own. So I'm not asking you not to attend, but I'm also asking you not to prevent others from attending. So please sign up one service per month, and then if you would like to attend a service, an additional service, multiple services within a given month, you're able to do so, but I ask you wait until Saturday evening or the night before in order to sign up. Even for those weekdays, even if it's a relatively small and obscure feast day, just please understand that I want everyone who is a member of our parish to be able to worship in our church. And I don't want anyone to struggle to be able to sign up. So please be respectful of that, and only sign up for multiple services the night before that service. Those are the questions that I've received so far. Last question, have we thought about placing an offering basket near the end of the church? We have done that on a few occasions. We have put the basket there, and I have asked people on their way out to leave their offering at that time. The other thing is, when you come in, we have signs up that again advocate that you use the app. I know that not everybody here lives in as much of a digital world as the world is asking us to live in right now. But if you do download that app on your phone, you can give at any time. You can give while you're walking into the church to pay for your candle. You can give on your way out, since we won't be passing a tray, but the physical tray will also be in the narthex, and I will make sure to announce that more regularly. But it has been there for our parishioners to make their offering at the end of the service as well. Any specific questions for Jim or for Foti? All right, I don't see any additional questions. I don't see any hands raised. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Again, I want to thank Foti and Jim for their presentations and their leadership. We are truly blessed to have such a self-sacrificial parish council who are working tirelessly to maintain the ministries and the functioning of our parish. Both from a financially responsible perspective, but also they're working very hard to be present in a liturgy so that we can all come together and worship. And I thank them for all their sacrifices. Our Sunday school teachers, I know that this is a different approach that we'll be taking for the year. I want to thank you and all of you for your love and concern for our parish, and taking time, yes, even taking time away from the RNC to join us this evening to discuss the health and well-being of our parish. I pray that the Lord bless us, continue to keep us healthy and safe, and that as a community, we can band together, connect with one another and with him, and that through this time that we emerge stronger, more connected, more empathetic and loving to one another. May the Lord our God bless us and keep us today and always. Amen. Thank you very much.